the fox, and the rabbit. The fire has burned down to the deep red coals, the kind that hold the heat for a long time, breathing it out into the cool night air. The smoke drifts straight up into the black bowl of the sky, joining the Milky Way, the path of the spirits. It is a good night. The coyotes are quiet, waiting. The world is listening. You want to know about the Apache kid, I will tell you, but we must sit with this story, we must let it breathe. It is not a pebble to be skipped across the water, it is a stone to be held in the hand, heavy and real. We will walk the circle of his life in that time, through the 4 quarters, just as the sun travels from the morning to the night. The first quarter, the sun rises in the east. The story begins far from the limestone and cedar of this land. It begins where the day is born, across the great, endless waters. The Apache kid was young then, 13 winters. He was a military brat, a traveler of the 4 directions before he even had hair on his chin. He had walked the concrete streets of Germany, smelled the cherry blossoms in Japan, felt the humid embrace of Korea, and walked the bustling markets of Thailand and China. In those places, he was not a shadow. He was a light. You must understand, in those lands, to be an American was to be something special. "Hey, Joe," they would call out, smiling, waving, "my friend, my American friend." It was easy to have a heart that was open because every door was open to him. But for the kid, it was more than just being American. The women, not just the girls his age, but the grown women, the shopkeepers, the sisters, they adored him. They would stop their work when he passed. They would giggle behind their hands, whispering in Tagalog, in Thai, in Japanese. They said he was handsome, cute, a little heartbreaker. They all wanted to be his girlfriend, even if just in play. He walked through those countries wrapped in a blanket of admiration. In Japan, there were 2 sisters, twins. They were beautiful, with hair like black silk and faces like porcelain dolls. They argued in the street, their voices rising like birds. "He will be my boyfriend," one said. "No, he is mine," the other cried. The kid, young as he was, possessed the wisdom of the coyote. He looked at them, smiled a smile that could melt the snow on Mount Fuji, and said, "Why fight? Why not both of you be my girlfriends?" The sisters looked at each other, then at him, and giggled. They agreed. And so he walked with a twin on each arm, a king in a land of emperors. Then came Hawaii. Ah, the islands! The air there smells of salt, roasting pig, and hibiscus. The kid fit into that land as if he had been born from its volcanic soil. He was native, and to the Hawaiians he was a cousin. He let his hair grow long, thick, shiny black hair that fell in waves all the way to his waist. When he walked on the beach, the wind caught it like a banner. He was not big like the Samoans, those mountains of men. He was lean, built like a whip. But he hung out with the big Hawaiian boys, the mokes, the locals who protected their beaches. They accepted him. They saw his spirit. They called him Little Brother or Little Mountain. "You come eat," they would say, slapping his back with hands the size of shovels. They invited him to the luau's, to the family dinners in the villages where the tourists never went. He ate poi and kalua pork with his fingers, sitting on the woven mats, laughing with the aunties and uncles. He belonged. There was a girl there, the sister of one of the big brothers. She was 18 winters old, a woman grown. She was the fire of the island. Every boy wanted her. The high school football stars, the military brats with their buzz cuts, the local surfers, they all circled her like sharks. But she looked at them and saw children. They acted like they were 5 years old, puffing their chests out, bragging, being loud. Then she looked at the Apache kid. He was younger, yes, but in his eyes there was an old soul. He was smart. He was funny. He was mature. He knew martial arts from all the lands he had traveled. He moved with a quiet lethality that the big brothers respected. He could hold his own. She chose him. "You," she said, pointing a finger at his chest, "you are mine." And the brothers, who would have crushed any other boy, nodded in approval. "Good," they said, "the little mountain is good people." So he walked the beaches of Hawaii with the most beautiful woman on the island, his long hair blowing in the trade winds, his heart full of confidence. He was a king. The second quarter, the south wind brings the heat. Then came the change. The family moved back to the belly of the beast, Central Texas. the great sprawling metroplex between San Antonio and Austin, where the cities bleed into one another in a tangle of concrete highways and shimmering heat. If you have never been there, you cannot know the dryness. It sucks the moisture right out of your skin. The land is hard, broken only by scrub oak, mesquite, and the white dust of the limestone quarries. For the Apache kid, it was like hitting a wall of stone. He walked into that high school, and the silence was louder than any shout. He was the new face, the dark face, the unknown. He tried to be the boy he was in the islands. He had been raised to be friendly, to be the American friend. So he walked up to the girls in the hallway. Not just the queens of the school, but the quiet ones, the ones who stood by the walls, even the ones the other boys called fat or ugly. To the kid, they were just people. He saw their spirits, not their shells. He would smile, that same genuine smile that had charmed the twins in Japan, and offer a hand. "Hi, how are you doing?" The rejection was total. It was a cold wind in a hot land. The girls would look at him with eyes like flint. "You," they would say, curling their lips. "Get away from me. Why are you talking to us? You're weird. You're ugly." It didn't matter who they were. The rejection was the same. In the islands, he was a fox. Here, he was treated like a stray res dog, one of those rib-thin mutts that wanders the reservation, looking for a scrap, only to be kicked aside by a boot. He was unwanted, unseen, a scavenger in a land of plenty. He retreated. He stopped speaking. But he did not stop moving. He found his spirit in a machine, a 1968 Pontiac Firebird. Now, this was not a shiny toy bought with daddy's money. This car had a soul, and it had a ghost. The kid had found it in the backyard of an elderly white man, a man with sad, watery eyes. The car had been sitting under a tarp, waiting. The old man told him, "It was for my son. He was going to drive it when he came back from Vietnam." But the son never came back. Just like the kid's own father never came back from that same jungle war. The kid felt the connection in his blood. It was a heavy thing, a sacred thing. He asked for the car, and the old man, seeing something in the boy's eyes, maybe the same loss, maybe the same hope, gave it to him. "Take it," he said. "It needs to run. It needs to live." The kid poured his grief and his strength into that iron horse. On the outside, it looked rough. It was primer red, the color of dried clay, the color of the earth. It looked unfinished, shabby, like something you would find in a junkyard. But underneath, it was a warrior. He rebuilt the engine, a 400 Ram Air 4 that could breathe fire. He put on chrome side pipes that gleamed like silver jewelry against the dull red paint. He installed a hood tachometer so he could see the heartbeat of the engine without taking his eyes off the road. He cut 2 nostrils into the hood, snorkels to suck in the cool air. When he turned the key, it didn't scream. It rumbled. A low, deep growl that vibrated in your chest like a mountain lion warning you to step back. He drove it like that, primer red, rough on the outside, perfect on the inside, just like him. The third quarter, the West, where the hunter waits. A man can only live as a stray dog for so long before the wolf inside wakes up. The kid realized his medicine was low. His spirit was starving. He needed to hunt. He didn't pick an easy target. He decided to find the highest peak. He began to gather intelligence. He became a spy in his own school. He moved between the tribes of teenagers, listening, watching. He spent weeks doing this, patient as a spider. He went to the shit kickers, the boys in the cowboy hats with the circles of snuff in their back pockets, leaning against their muddy trucks. "Who is she?" the kid asked, leaning against the primer red fender of his Firebird. "Who is the one girl everyone wants but can't touch?" They spat tobacco juice in the dust. "Heather Sanders," they said, tipping their hats back. "But don't bother, son. She's high society." He went to the band geeks, the ones sitting in the music hall polishing their brass. "Who is the queen?" he asked. "Heather Sanders." They whispered, as if saying her name was dangerous. "She's perfect." He went to the heavy metalers and the hard rockers, the ones with the long hair and the black t-shirts, smoking cigarettes behind the gym. "Who is the one?" "Sanders," they grunted. "She's the only one worth looking at." He went to the rappers, the jocks, the rich kids, the poor kids. He asked them all. It was always one of 3 names, but every single time the arrow pointed to one name above the others. Heather Sanders. She was the head cheerleader. The sun everyone orbited, unreachable, cold as the winter moon. Good, the kid said to himself, I will court her. He began the siege. It was not a battle of fists, but a battle of will. Every day he found her. He didn't crowd her. He just made his presence known. Heather, he'd say, catching her eye as she walked to class. Friday night, you, me, dinner and a movie, 7 p.m. She would roll her eyes, looking at his primer red car, looking at his dark skin. No! Never happening, she'd say the next day. A week went by, then 2, then 3. The kid didn't get angry. He didn't beg like a dog. He stood his ground like a stone in the river. Every no you give me, he told her calmly, is just getting the no's out of the way so we can get to the yes. It wore her down. Not the asking, but the confidence. She couldn't understand it. Who was this stray dog who didn't know his place? Finally, in the cafeteria, she slammed her tray down. She turned to him, her face flushed with frustration. What? What do I have to do to get you to leave me alone? The kid didn't blink. One date, one Friday night. If you don't have a good time, I will never speak to you again. I will vanish like smoke in the wind. She looked at her friends. She looked at him. She sighed, a long, heavy sigh of surrender. Fine, one date, just to get you to shut up. 7 p.m., the kid said. I'll pick you up. The fourth quarter, the north, the place of wisdom, Friday night. The Texas sky was a bruised purple as the sun went down. The kid pulled the Firebird into her driveway. The low rumble of the 400 engine shook the windows of her house. The primer red paint looked dark in the twilight, but the chrome side pipes caught the streetlights. He walked to the door. He didn't shuffle. He walked like a man who owned the ground under his boots. He met her father. He shook the man's hand with a grip that was firm and dry. He looked him in the eye. I will bring her back safe, sir. You have my word. The father, expecting a hoodlum in a junk car, was taken aback by the respect. He nodded, stepping aside. Heather came out. She looked the Zen. Like she was walking to a funeral. She walked to the car, eyeing the dull primer red paint, the rough exterior that looked like it had been dragged through the desert. She reached for the handle, expecting the door to creak, expecting the seat to be torn. She opened the door. And she stopped. Inside, it was a different world. It was immaculate. The black vinyl seats were brand new, smelling of the factory. The dashboard gleamed like polished obsidian. The chrome dials shone in the moonlight. It was as if she had stepped through a portal back to 1968, to the day the car rolled off the showroom floor. She sat down, confused. The contrast between the rough outside and the perfect inside threw her off balance. Wow! Fie! She whispered. I didn't expect this. The kid just smiled and turned the key. The engine purred, a deep, confident sound. He reached for the stereo. The music that filled the cabin wasn't the twang of country or the pop of the radio. It was the heavy, melodic sound of rock ballads, music that spoke of longing and power. The voice of the Scorpions filled the air, Klaus Meine's voice soaring. Time, it needs time, to win back your love again. I will be there, I will be there. Dorsey. Then the smooth dual guitars of April Wine took over, the lyrics hanging in the space between them. Just between you and me. Baby, I know our love will be. Just between you and me. The music was a subliminal current, setting a mood she didn't even realize she was falling into. As they drove toward the city, the silence stretched out, but it wasn't empty. She kept glancing at him in the dashboard lights. She was really seeing him for the first time, without the school hallway noise. You look different, she said, her voice quiet. You aren't black. You aren't Mexican. Your skin is dark, but your features, what are you? Guess, the kid said, keeping his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the shifter. She guessed everything she could think of. Italian, Greek, Hawaiian. No, he said, Lipan Apache, and Shoshone Comanche. She stared at him. I thought you guys were all gone, like in the movies. They tried, the kid said, but roots go deep in this rock. I'm the one who circled back. But you're new, she said, tilting her head. Where did you come from? You don't talk like the guys here. I'm from here, he said. My grandparents have a ranch southwest of San Antonio, halfway to the ocean. I spend my summers here, running the land with my cousins and uncles. But the rest of the time, my mother works for the Department of Defense, he explained. I grew up everywhere. Germany, Japan, Korea. I've lived in countries most people here only see on a map. I speak their languages, I know their streets. She looked at him with wide eyes. This wasn't just a quiet kid from the back of the class. This was a traveler, a man of the world. It explained why he didn't act like the boys at school who had never left the county line. He was an old soul in a young body. They arrived at the steakhouse. It was the kind of place with white tablecloths and 3 forks at every setting. The kid knew he had to play the trickster. He had to break the image she had of the stray res dog. The waiter arrived, a young man in a stiff vest. The kid didn't order in the flat twang of Central Texas. He sat up straight, lifted his chin, and spoke in French. Perfect, flowing French, with the arrogant nasal tone of a Parisian waiter he had mimicked from a movie. I will have the filet saignant, and for the lady. Heather's eyes went wide. She hid her face behind the menu. Her shoulders started to shake. She wasn't laughing at him, she was laughing with him. The absurdity of it. This Apache boy in a primer red muscle car, sitting in a Texas steakhouse, ordering like a French aristocrat. He didn't stop there. He told her stories. He took her out of that small, dusty town. He told her about the humidity of the Philippines, the sisters in Japan, the way the ocean sounded in Hawaii. He painted pictures in the air with his hands. She laughed until she was gasping. She laughed until tears ruined her mascara. Stop, stop, she pleaded, clutching her stomach. I have to go to the ladies' room. She ran off. When she came back, her face was scrubbed clean, red and happy. She leaned in, whispering, I laughed so hard I had to use the hand dryer on my underwear. You are crazy. The medicine was back. The kid could feel it flowing through him like the gasoline in his engine. They went to the movie next. It wasn't a slow romance. It was an action movie, loud, fast, funny, and full of suspense. During a chase scene, a sudden explosion on the screen made the theater jump. Heather gasped and grabbed onto the kid's arm, burying her face in his shoulder. He didn't flinch, he didn't pull away, he just smiled, a calm, reassuring presence in the dark. He let her hold on, letting her feel the strength in his arm, letting her know that he was solid. He was safe. The drive back was different. The music played softly, maybe a little Def Leppard or Whitesnake ballad now. But she didn't want the song to end. She watched the street lights pass, wishing the road was longer. The Firebird rumbled up to her curb, the exhaust pulsing in the night air. He walked her to the door. Thank you, he said. A promise is a promise. You won't be bothered by me again. He turned and walked away. He was halfway to the car, the primer red paint waiting for him in the dark. Wait! He stopped. He turned slowly. Heather was standing on the porch, the light framing her. She ran down the steps, closing the distance between them. I had the best time, better than with any of those guys at school. She bit her lip, looking up at him. Is it okay? Can I take you out next Friday? My treat? Everything on me. I'd love to go out with you again. The kid smiled. It was the smile of the coyote who just outsmarted the trap. I'd like that. The aftermath 3 weeks later, the school was a different world. The Apache kid walked down the hall, and Heather Sanders, the untouchable one, the queen, was holding his hand. The shit-kickers stopped spitting. The jocks stopped talking. The band geeks stared over their instruments. The girls who had called him a stray dog, the ones who had hissed at him, now smiled. They waved. They whispered, What does he have? What does he know? They didn't understand. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a trick. The Apache kid had simply forced them to look in the mirror. He showed them that the primer red car had a racing engine inside. He showed them that the stray dog was actually a wolf. The elder leans back, the firelight catching the deep lines of his face. He picks up a stick and stirs the coals, sending a shower of sparks upward. He got his medicine back that night. And though that young man walked many roads after that, and wore many faces in the years to come, he never let them take it from him again.